And we are live through the magic and the mysticism that some people call the internet. We are here for another episode of Wait, Did I Roll a Wild? Your Marvel Crisis Protocol vlog. And not only do we have some of my favorite people here, but it is also a very special day. So I'd like to take a minute, so just sit right there and let's sing happy birthday to Dr. D. All right, get ready. Everyone in chat, I expect you all to
No.
do this at home at the top of your lungs. If you are not, I will know. Happy
Happy
birthday to
birthday
you.
to you.
Happy
Happy
birthday to
birthday to
you.
you.
Happy
Happy
birthday,
birthday,
Dr.
Dr.
D.
D.
Happy birthday to you.
And many more.
Nice.
Thanks.
Nice.
Thanks, Planet Earth.
It was all of them together. You can actually
Oh.
read more about Planet Earth in Dr. D's latest article. I believe it even has a hyperlink directly to the source material for Earth.
For the Earth.
For the whole thing. The whole
No.
thing. But this week, following up on our episode from last week where we talked about a competitive event checklist, some of the things to keep in mind when you go to a competitive event, whether it's your first time or your 13th time. You're not allowed to go to events more than 13 times, though, so it's kind of just between those two particular numbers. But this week, we're going to be talking about um, not only just setting goals, but how to not be a doofus, both for yourself and for others. When you're at an event, whether it's a convention or an LGS or a local gameplay night or whatever it be, maybe you're in someone's basement and painting for them. It doesn't matter. There should be kind of a code of conduct that you are following to make sure that you are building community, that you are being a good player and a good opponent, all kind of wrapped up in that same encapsulation. So, as we are getting into con season, kicked off with Adepticon, these are kind of things that we should all kind of keep in mind to be doing both for ourselves and for others as we go around to competitive events all over the place. And real quick, just before I forget, because sometimes I do, we are officially sponsored by Frontline Gaming. So if you are looking for mats, terrain, or a plethora of events all throughout the year, the Bay Area Open is now having an MCP event that is next month. So make sure to grab tickets for that. There's links in the show notes and the descriptions for all that great stuff that supports us directly as well. Especially if you're picking up like that brand new Hydra mat, which just got fully released. If you saw that at LVO and you were like, yo, 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 when can I get that though? Guess what? It is now live and it is out and you can get it for yourself. But, so thank you very much to Frontline Gaming for sponsoring us and making sure MCP is going to be sticking around at the competitive scene for quite some time. All right. That said, though, one thing that we always ask at the start of every show is games played and hobby thoughts. Taylor and I got to play part of a game. We actually played the full game, but this past week on Oh Yeah, the Power Phase before Spectrum's internet said, you know what? I don't think so. Um, Dr. D may or may not have played a game or hobbied something. Ben, I'm assuming, has pretty much done nothing but play games and has hobbied probably not much. But well, and by not much,
Well,
that sounded accusatory. That is fair. Um, maybe he primed something. I feel you're in a pretty similar wheelhouse as to me, where I can assemble and I can prime, and I can do some of the grunt work that is needed. But I have big, fat, stupid fingers, and they break models all the time, and it makes me very mad. So I try not to do it because I like to set goals of not being toxic. And when I break models, I turn into a not nice person. So I try not to put myself in positions where models can be broken.
Would you say Hulk out a little
I
bit?
I do immortally. Some might say I Hulk out.
I mean, that's the best way to Hulk out, though, is immortally.
It really is. I've always said, everyone says really. But
Kind of like, kind of
Doctor,
like,
oh sorry, go ahead.
like this one. You know,
Yes.
Oh, look at that.
Now you need two so you can make them kiss. But Doctor D, have you played any games this week? And if not, have you hobbied anything?
Sure have. Have I played games? I could talk about Infinity more now. So yes, I did. I played Infinity. I play it every Tuesday. As
Oh, nice.
MCP, I did. I played against Jesse from Fury's Finest.
Nice.
It was the top cut for the Fury's Finest league.
Mm-hmm.
I'm say it's not the Discord league. which you can do if you follow that podcast. And I lost real bad, real bad. It was 20-6. Came right to the end.
Oof.
It was yeah, classic Dylan blunder. Let me tell you. So I was playing Hellfire. He was playing. Let's just guess the antithesis of Dylan's existence. He was playing Brotherhood, and they shot and the classic Brotherhood member Bill. He ran up and was like, "I'm fighting for mutant rights. Have this hammer, bonk," and then I died.
Beta Ray Bill is kind of like the quintessential Brotherhood of mutant fella. Like
he's got metal on him.
That's true.
Right?
That's very true. Everyone says.
He's an android, so he's like kind of made of metal or something.
Right? Yeah. It checks out. Look, the math equals up, man.
He was born as an android. He can't stop that.
Right? I don't know how that works.
Mm-hmm. Neither do I. I don't think I wouldn't even dig into it. and then yesterday I finished Cassandra Kusanagi. If anybody who plays Infinity knows who that is, it's the leader of the evil blood Christian cult thing with pretty turquoise hair. Yay. That's nice. How about you, Ben?
Yeah, so I actually did a little bit of hobbying this week. We actually got our Frontline Gaming Hydra mat. It's not in yet, but we ordered it, and so we are joyfully anticipating it by finally putting together our Hydra buildings.
Nice.
So we got that, and then I decided not to glue down the turret, so that way, if I want to, feel missily or lasery, I could, I could do that. So
which actually might really work out for you, because if AMG actually releases terrain rules, there might be some reason for you to switch them.
And hear me out. I'm going to put magnets on these, so that way I can actually make this 2 terrain features. So that way, Magneto can be happy with me. And then the other thing that I did, we're getting ready to play some Blood Bowl, and so I did paint this model.
Oh, nice.
And it's really bad and awful, and I love every second of it. And I was raging the whole time. But it's a Corn Blood Bowl, guys, so it actually made sense for me to be angry while I was painting it.
Something I will always say to somebody who says they don't paint well is that the war on gray never ends, and every soldier is valuable. So
there you go.
you did your duty, son.
I actually really like that a lot, like a whole ton.
But yeah, I've been playing a lot of games recently. So during the season of Lent, I fasted from Brotherhood. So in good Easter celebration, I've been playing a lot of Brotherhood games, and it's been awesome. I've been having a lot of fun, just getting back on the horse, and played a lot of really good players recently, and I'm really excited. We're gearing up for ACO. So I'm really excited. ACO is just right around the corner, and so I'm trying to get ready for that. So I've been having a lot of fun, and Alyssa and I just finished our second battle report, so that should be coming out soon.
So, and why don't you just take a minute real quick, and let us know what that battle report is for and where people could find it.
Yeah, so Alyssa and I just started a YouTube channel called Married Couple Protocol, and it is an absolute joy to be on that with Alyssa, who puts up with me, and so we put out battle reports. She wants to say hello.
Hi, Alyssa.
Hi.
And so we do battle reports. Alyssa did a painting of Dylan's favorite Brotherhood member, Beta Ray Bill, and and then we did a breakdown of our art store competition that we just came back from not too long ago. So those are generally the things that we're trying to put together. And we're joyfully anticipating Shatterpoint. We might try Shatterpoint on there as well. Shatterpoint Battle Report. So
nice. I will say I did check out that art store Aftermath, and I thought the choice of apparel was very good.
Yeah, we were like, man, we should probably do this, and we woke up really early in the morning and did it.
I also really appreciated that that you guys waited for Beowulf to leave the seat before Alyssa was allowed to sit on the bench thing next to you. I thought that was very cute.
Yeah, no, Beowulf, gets to set the rules. We just kind of just live here.
But speaking of other things around the podcasting world, Dylan also launched a podcast last week. Dylan, why don't you let everyone know about that a little bit?
Do I have to? It's called Arachne. So it's Arachne, the Infinity gaming podcast. So Infinity is run by Corvus Belli, and it's been around for actually a while. I started playing it like in the high day of like War Machine, so it's been around for a while. People have probably heard of it, but they probably may have not actually tried it. But the great game. I've been playing it for a very long time. The community just lost a fantastic podcast by the name of Mayacast. They finally just closed up shop, and I saw an opportunity for people to get more content since they lost such a staple. I was like, great, hey, we'll come in and we'll kind of fill in that hole. So I've
The
put
square
in.
hole?
I'm not allowed to talk about that legally. People, I'm on a list. Okay, so when when I completely lost track of train of
I'm sorry.
Arachne podcast Infinity. I love lore, so one of the things that Infinity I think has been lacking is a lot of their podcasts don't have anything to do with lore. It's mostly just competitive stuff. So I think that if you are curious about Infinity and you don't play it, it probably will still be interesting because I love Corvus Belli, but man, they love taking IPs. So like so much of their stuff has like other things that are in it. So like there's always like stuff to relate to. One of their sectorials is very, very like Marvel and comic book themed, which is funnily enough the one I play. Ironic. So if you listen to those episodes, you might get something out of it that you weren't expecting. You probably might enjoy it. And the RPG for the game is amazing. I love the setting. So if you really like maybe more like utopian science fiction. It's very like Altered Carbon. So if you like Altered Carbon, you probably would really like the setting. It has a lot of different like things that it takes inspiration from. It's definitely not another like version of 40K. It's very very like
Okay.
much more cyberpunk than like a 40K type of future. So
Now,
it's like not utopian per se, but it's not like hopeless.
now you said they have a TTRPG as well?
They do. It's made by Modifius, actually, and
Oh.
I've actually run it. It's so I really enjoy it, like because I love the setting. It's probably a little clunky for somebody to have like their first RPG be that, especially if they're running it.
Mhm.
I ran a couple people that were maybe not veterans per se, but it wasn't their very first RPG, and there was a lot of discussion on rules interactions. So very good game. If you have a veteran group that are even like mildly interested in the setting, you can have a rip roaring time. Let me tell you,
That'd actually be dope to do a one shot of or something as well. Like, just to try
I
it
would
out.
I would gladly do it for sure.
Consider it done.
Can I be a bear in a mech suit with a big old hammer?
You can't. So the rules that are in the game right now, you cannot play a bear pode, but you can play. You can play the werewolf. The werewolf one. That was actually in the core book. That was the very
Alright,
first thing I played when I tried it.
I'll settle for a werewolf.
You can snip. So like just to kind of give you an example, when I was playing it, due to the course of the adventure, I was naked on top of a spaceship in werewolf form because I snaffed, I sniffed who we were chasing after all the way to the thing, and I jumped on top of the spaceship and punched it down into the landing bay. It's very pulp actiony. It's baller.
Okay.
It's Jarl Ballin. Let me
That
tell
sounds
you.
like something Chuck would love too. Whenever one of the first things we did for Pathfinder Second Edition was I ran a Halloween one shot called The Haunting or the Halloween, something like that. It's on the Patreon. But Chuck loves just doing stuff like, oh, I run up the wall and I jump on its back and I try to bring the harpy to the ground, and it's just like he loves that over the top. I throw my entire bandolier of grenades into its mouth, just like trying to figure out what he's doing and how the mechanics would work, and sometimes be a little wild. So if there's a system that supports that, he would probably be down to clown. Um, but yeah, so Arachne you can find where all good podcasts are sold. Look for it a little bit, but it's also on the website. If you check out professionalcasual.com, you can find a direct link to it. So if you
And
do have difficulty, you can just head right there.
And if you need like an RSS, give me a heads up. It's a little hard to find. I think the algorithm's still trying to pick up people, but I was amazed at the response we got for the first episode.
Yeah.
Way more people than I was expecting. People love it. And every single person's like, wow, this is like one of the best edited podcasts I've ever listened to. And I'm like, I'm sorry that all the other podcasts aren't up to that standard. I apologize. But they've really enjoyed it. So if you're interested, reach out to me, look for it, and we can explore the universe together.
But one thing, whether it's MCP, whether it's Arachne or Infinity, or even I suppose Arachne as well, but maybe Shatterpoint, Legion, doesn't matter. One thing that happens and is a great part of any community are events, whether it's local, national, international, like the WTC that's coming up, I think, in October of this year. A lot of different ways to play with a lot of different people, but there's some kind of basic building blocks that make those communities happen and function and make them good places to be. I think anyone that has been into miniatures gaming or even collectible card games for any amount of time know for a fact that there are some communities or some things that make you feel not great about the time you've spent and a lot of the money and effort that has gone into playing a game. So this particular episode is going to be heavily focused on setting kind of some goals to make sure that even if you end up losing, you're walking away with some progression, better, not perfect, or progress, not perfection. I think is super important there. But real quick, while coming off of that particular sentence, which may seem, you know, nice and calm and all that good stuff, we have a declaration because we have been called out by the Fifth Trooper that Jay is apparently going to try to beat every single one of the members of the Professional Casual Network at events that we're running, and then he'll become John PCN. But so the gauntlet's been thrown. So we are going to be going back and forth. They came to the event at the art store that we did a couple weeks ago. Ben was there as well. Everyone else betrayed me and just like, no, Tim, sorry, I don't like you enough to actually go spend time with you. So we won't go there. So that's Jay's goal. Honestly, Evan's super dope. So it'll be fun to see him. But I mean, he's coming for us, and we gotta make it. I don't know what we get if we beat him or what. Maybe we get to be John Fifth Trooper, but you know it'll be out there. He's I believe already hired Ben as a ringer with card sleeves as a prize. But so we'll get there. But so make sure to stay tuned for that. We're
I
running
could be
another.
rebot. I just, I could be rebot. I don't. We could have a
Oh,
bidding. I'm okay with being rebot. That's
so
gonna make it worth my time. That's all I'm saying.
so I mean, here's the thing. So the next instance of a Fifth Trooper going up against the Professional Casual Network will be May 20th at Bearded Dragon Games in upstate New York. Ben honestly was so nervous about this confrontation, he backed out completely. He was like, "I
Had to do it.
can't do it. I'm not going to be for that. I just don't want to get hit by the crossfire," which honestly sounds like not an awful idea, but
I heard there was a tactical tailor, and I can't take it.
right.
Yeah.
So make sure if you haven't already, Bearded Dragon Games online is a great place to go just in case you want to pre-order Shatterpoint or your MCP models or whatnot. But we'll also be running an event there. You can check it out in the Longshanks. The info for that will be spiraling through the stream tonight and will be in the show notes. But May 20th, we'll be running an event at Bearded Dragon Games, and it is filling up somewhat medium paced. So I would get on that before it becomes fast paced, and then then you might miss out. But Ben,
Tim.
tell me about your experience a little bit at the art store event that we did just a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, so one of the first things that I look for when we go to events is like how clean and welcoming is the store.
Mhm.
And we were both overwhelmed with just how wonderful the art store location was. A very welcoming, huge store. Obviously, caters to a lot of the other art needs. So there's a lot of space, lots of really, really neat stuff. Um, but very clean, very welcoming. There was a lot of space, which was just awesome. Didn't get too stuffy. You're not rubbing shoulders with the next person next to you. Each table had enough room for the players. which is awesome. You're not like stealing chairs, so you can put your stuff and wiggling, Um, and one of the best things was part of the entry fee, you got pizza, which is like, say less. I'm in, right?
That part was actually super dope, like just in general.
It really was. Brian, I believe his name is the store owner, and is also going to be running the Salt City GT in July,
Hmm.
which we plan on going to. Really wonderful and nice guy. And so listen, I went and we had some really wonderful expectations and goals going into the event. I decided to bring Hydra instead of Brotherhood, just because I've been having a lot of fun with Hydra, and there's a lot of fun stuff that I wanted to do. And Alyssa was continuing to go after her goal for some Inhumans leaderboard stuff, which was an awesome goal for her. And so we had a lot of fun. There was this wonderful group of people from Rochester that came as well, and we had a couple of guys from the Albany region. And like I said, our boy Otis was there, so it's always great. I mean, it's always a party when Otis is there. It's always really fun to see him. And we had just a heck of a time. So it was a really wonderful event, and 10 out of 10 would definitely go again.
Well, beautiful. And guess what? You'll have an opportunity for that exact thing. June 24th, we will be
Yeah,
running another event at the art store. Um,
June
leading up until the Salt City GT, that will be the weekend of July 7th. So if you check out or Google Salt City GT, get tickets for that event. I know a lot of us are going to be there. And usually at the events, I think we're going to be doing some giveaways for that particular event as well. So stay tuned for that. In addition, the art store has given us a Deadpool and Hydra Bob box to give away, and a Asgard affiliation box. So make sure to stay tuned over at professionalcasual.com or on the facebook.com/professionalcasual for those giveaways once they go up. That's Otis's birthday, June 24th.
Is it really?
Dope.
Well,
My
that means you
birth
have to come, right? Yeah.
my birthday's the weekend before. My birthday will be the day we're traveling to ACO.
Today is also his oldest son's birthday.
Otis's?
Yeah, yeah. Otis's. He said his oldest son's birthday was also today.
Oh wow! It just this is why we're such a great community, because we share so many birthdays.
We sure
Yeah,
do.
it was meant to be.
Congratulations, everybody. Good team
We
effort.
really did it. We did it. It took us a long time, but we finally got there. We finally
Well,
got there.
we
Oh,
got
sorry.
there.
His youngest's birthday is today.
But Ben, you spoke about something very specific, specifically Alyssa's goals that she had kind of set for a number of different things. She had a goal at LVO. She had a goal kind of just based off her Longshanks rankings and stuff like that as well. Do you want to talk about that at all, just a little bit, just to kind of give some context to maybe some of the goals that one could have, whether they're just getting into the competitive scene, like Alyssa was, and she also wrote a very good article about it, which you can find on the site as well. And yeah, go for it.
Yeah. So one of the things as we kind of move into the discussion about what is it like to be a competitive player and not be a doofus, and um, one of the big ways that you can kind of keep that in check is setting, most importantly, manageable goals. Alyssa and I talk about the difference between reasonable goal setting and manageable, or unreasonable goal setting and manageable goal setting. And so at LVO, Alyssa had the goal to play 2 Inhuman games. I mean, she brought a dual affiliated roster with A Force and Inhumans, and Inhumans is one of her first loves as an affiliation, and unfortunately, because she watched that terrible Netflix show, but and liked it, she was the one person who enjoyed it. So it was great. Um, so she did that, and saw how wonderful the MCP community was at LVO, and that kind of kick started. What would it be like to be a competitive player in MCP? And so when we went to the art store and a couple other events, before we talked about what is a manageable goal for her. And Alyssa has been playing in lots of tournaments with me, and um, she wanted to get on the leaderboard, on the top 5 leaderboard for her favorite affiliation. And so we talked about what that looked like, what that meant, having some really wonderful and honest conversations about, playing more games, going against, teams that you've not seen, before, and all of that. And a big part of that is playing more games. And so she came with the wonderful anticipation to the art store that if she played 3 games within humans, that she would get a nice bump on the Longshanks ratings, and that would most likely put her on the leaderboards. And after the 3rd game, I believe it was, she checked her rating in between rounds, and we all celebrated as she made it onto the leaderboards. It was a really neat and kind of special moment where like everyone in the room just kind of took a second
Yeah,
to celebrate and praise Alyssa for it because it was awesome, and she was having a great time and playing some great opponents at the art store. And that's what's so great about this competitive community in MCP, and I think just the community as a whole, but how supportive,
correct.
um,
Yep.
they are. And before I drop it, I think one of the most important parts of it is actually when AMG put out the challenger rules for
Yeah, for
competitive
real.
events and actually kind of set a guideline. And one of the most interesting things that they did, and I wasn't sure about it when it first came out, was that the first tiebreaker was strength of schedule. And I heamed and hawed about that because that was one of those, oh, you can't control your strength of schedule because you need your opponents to win and do well after you play them. And what I found, and I think what a lot of players have found, um, is how intentional in community building that is. Because after you play a game with your opponent, you really want to support them. You want to encourage them and lift them up and say, "Hey, these are the things that you did well. Maybe this is some couple things that you missed on." But it's so supportive. It's not about grinding, Dr. Dean into the ground by putting as many terrain features in and just getting the largest margin of victory.
Hmm.
And I really think that was intentional on AMG's part.
I do too.
Uh, and I think that is absolutely wonderful in terms of keeping a really good and well intentioned competitive community.
Well, and very specifically, like we saw at the art store, that was Jay's first event, right? He had
Hmm.
half played a game previous to that and then showed up to that event to play. He went up against Roland, I believe, round 2, who ended up getting the LVO qualification from that event because Ben had already qualified previously. Um, and instead of being like, well, I have to worry about my margin of victory to win, he just was like, well, I have to get my points, but I can show my opponent, who's a newer player, how to get points, how to play, what decisions they should be making. And as far as community building, number one, that's an incredible example of a player actually doing it. And number two, the system as a whole, and I maybe a lot of people disagree with this, but not having margin of victory in there um, helps create those situations. So as
Yeah.
whether it's intentful or not by AMG, I would assume so, but you know what I mean? It's nice to actually see that in practice and have that turn into a positive experience for somebody.
Yeah, and you're 100% correct. And Roland being, a guy from the Albany region,
Hmm.
and this is new people, folks you've never met before, and sometimes in other settings you can kind of have that competitive uh, nature overwhelm you, and again you just want to grind people into the dust. But again, you're right, Tim. Because of how the community is and the game is intentionally built in the competitive sphere, um, it takes good people. Roland's a great guy, anyways. I
Hmm.
got a wonderful opportunity to play him, um, but I think a big part of that too is, hey, here's a new player, and Jay did really well,
Yeah.
and had a lot of fun, and so it was awesome, and because of that, builds the community, and as far as like I said, Jay fell in love with the game and wants to be playing, and now we've got a list of PCN folks to take down, so
Yeah.
it's
There's a couple
uh,
names. There's one name already scratched off of it potentially too. So it's
right.
maybe I can actually play as much as I'm trying to Huckleberry Finn somebody into running an event for me so I can play. maybe it's safer if I don't. But that just gives
Yeah.
Jay more time to train
Right.
for that inevitability. So,
Cue the Rocky montage. Yeah.
right, really.
Yeah.
So, and to that effect, you talked a little bit about goal setting and stuff, and Dr. D had a very good article over at the on the website. It's very specifically called, I believe, I was on
How
the
to be less
page
competitive.
and then I went off that page. But yes, what was it again?
How to be less competitive
How to be less
without fear.
without fear. Well, I was actually specifically talking about. Oh yes, it was that one. Creating goals without fear. Um, So, guide us through a little bit about when you were looking for a goal. Last week, we did talk about a bunch of different examples of things that people could, in fact, kind of pursue, whether it was painting or doing well with a particular affiliation or something along those lines. But when you're looking at creating a goal, especially off of that article, what are the things that maybe for a new player going to their first event where they're like, you know what, I'm not going to be able to win this, probably. I don't know, it's MCP, anything can happen as long as you got a fistful of dice and a pocket full of dreams. But what what's some advice that you would give to someone going to an event for their first time, and then alternatively, a goal for someone that has competed quite a bit that might be looking for another way of victory?
So I would say you definitely want to look at your first thing you want to do is essentially self-assessment. This is one of the most difficult things to do. Obviously, you can't like look at yourself very well because you're kind of skewed, right? Because you think you're the main character in your story, right? So it's always hard to like kind of assess where you are. So if this is like one of your first major events that you're going to, you probably don't want to think that you're going to be the winner, right? I mean, it's what I've definitely seen to their own detriment the big fish in the little pond syndrome, where you see the person that does pretty okay at local events, they show up to a big event and then they don't do as well as they intend to, I guess.
I mean,
They
that's
don't really get
professional
stomped per
casual
se.
in a key. You know what I mean? Good
For
enough to
sure.
beat all my friends constantly, not good enough so that I do and get stomped as soon as I go to an actual event.
So like in that situation, right? You're top dog of you're John PCN, right? But do you
Right.
want to be John Adepticon? Well, you got a whole nother you got a whole
Got to
nother
go
stat
through it.
sheet you got to start working on.
Yeah, got to go through at least another 127 people, other people first, and next year, who knows? Maybe even 150 something people on the way there, and that seems like a lot. Seems like a
So
lot.
like so look at it from that perspective, right? Do you think someone that plays once a week against the locals that play the same thing over and over again is gonna? Do you think that you can properly assess your ability to beat 150 other people that could potentially play the game like 3 times a week,
Personally, no,
right?
not at all.
Right. So like when you look at previous winners for LVO, Vince from last year and
Mike
I think
DeLuca.
Mike
Mike
DeLuca won
DeLuca.
the one before it. So both of them were essentially unemployed leading up to LVO.
Yep.
They were playing a lot of games, right?
That's
Yeah.
what they said was key to victory. Was just be unemployed, and play lots of MCP. Yeah.
Correct. So quit your job, achieve your dreams. Don't let your dreams be memes. No, but for real though, it's like you have to like assess that, right? Do you actually think that if you're just like a player who really enjoys the game, can you beat the top dogs? It's possible, but you're going to be going uphill. And so when you are going to your first event, let's say it's Adepticon, there's going to be a lot of people there. What do you want to do? Are you bringing something that you've been playing since the beginning of the game? Hey, you're still using the core box, right? You want to play Avengers and you've bought the core box and you
Mhm.
have, I don't know, a Sam, Captain America, War Machine, Ant-Man, and Wasp. You're like, so obviously that's not
One of
yeah.
those was core box, but that's okay.
Well, no, I'm saying
Go.
with the extra. I'm saying with extra boxes because you can't play dual affiliated. That's silly. Nobody plays dual affiliated.
Yeah, I don't think
So
anyone does that.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
silly. Nobody does it. So if you have that stuff with you, and let's just say you got a pretty solid Captain America Rogers team, but you haven't played Sam quite as much as you think you should have.
Mhm.
Okay, well, just take that into consideration. When you go there, your goal should not be to win. Your goal should be, let's put it into perspective, you play one of each leader. It doesn't, as soon as you have a goal, and this is even something like in game theory too. If you have a goal that is not controllable by anybody else, you are literally the master of your own destiny.
Mm.
Now, if your goal is to play one game with Cap Rogers and one with Cap Sam, I mean, honestly, you don't even need to look at what they're playing. You can just, bam, you did it. You went to Adepticon. Your goal was to do this one very specific thing. Boom, you did it. You won Adepticon. Congratulations. You're probably going to get a medal in the mail. It's going to be great. You did it.
Tisdale said in chat he always plays dual affiliated Magneto and Mystique.
Yeah, I mean, Tiz gets it. Someone
Right.
Magneto crown that man right now.
The deception affiliation. So
Don't get him started. You like to be here. You like to be here.
I'm just happy to be here. I'm happy to be here talking about goal setting. So that's the first thing you should do. Now, let's say that's your goal for this Adepticon. Maybe that's just your goal for the singles event.
Mhm.
Maybe when you go, you also have somebody you want to go to with another event. So you can have a large goal, which could be, hey, I go to Adepticon. My goal is to meet Ninjon in an elevator while he's going downstairs to drink. I did it. I achieved my dream.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't even know I had that goal until the elevator door opened. I was like, oh,
Right.
cool. So that's a good example. So, like, your goal doesn't even necessarily have to be, oh, I'm improving my gaming skills. It could be, oh, I have a new tool in my hobby belt,
Mhm.
or I now have, like, I don't want to say marketing per se, but you now have a network. Like, you can network with people. Because if you want to talk about the best part of the hobby, the winning the tournament stuff is super interesting to some people, but like that's their thing. If that's not your thing, you don't need to win LVO or Adepticon for you to have a successful con.
Mhm.
I would implore you to not have that as the aim. If that's just the cream on top of the cake, or icing on top of the cake. I don't know what kind of cake has ice or cream on it. That's weird, but
Pie.
yeah, you think
I
about
was, I was thinking pie.
pie might, yeah, pie is
Pie
probably
cake.
better.
Pie
Yeah.
cake.
That's a pie cake. There's the same thing. So
But to that effect, there's a bunch of different events at an event like Adepticon as well, right? So you have the team event that is going to play incredibly differently than a lot of the other standard events. Now, granted, we saw Mike DeLuca and Jacob win that one, so I mean, you'll see a lot of the same people around, but not everyone played in that event. Granted, a ton of people did, because there was 32 teams, something like
Yeah.
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 So I mean, that's considerable. So maybe your goal is to show up as, Professor X has been announced. Maybe your goal is to show up as Professor X and Magneto as a dual affiliation X-Men Brotherhood. Maybe it's to get a prize for a dope cosplay or team setup or display boards. There's a lot of things there that still have that competitive edge as far as improving your skills and outperforming your opponents. That isn't necessarily the big singles event, especially at an event like Adepticon that runs so many different, actually really dope events.
And
Maybe-
again, a lot of that's just not controllable by the other people.
Correct. Yep.
That was your thing.
Mhm.
So, and again, like even like you were just saying, maybe you're not going to win, but maybe you want to meet Mike DeLuca.
Right. Dope dude.
I mean, because I can truly say, this is actually a true fact. Jesse met him on at, I think, LVO.
Yep.
And they now have started a podcast called Hello There for Shatterpoint.
Mhm.
Like,
Great
that's the kind of stuff that can happen in this hobby. Is like you meet somebody, who knows what's going to happen.
I mean, very specifically, we met you, Dr. D, at
Right.
ACO. Had no, really reference to you before that, and now I message you every day, usually about what my dreams were, and Dr. D is actually he's a doctor of dreams. That's what the Dr. D stands for, and he kind of he goes through and he illustrates them. Incredible artist, and then he doesn't color them, and he sends them to me so I can color my own dreams.
Right.
It's very nice and very thoughtful. Ben, the same thing. Dan and I, after Adepticon last year, just happened to see that a guy that we met at Adepticon, Keebler, was going to be putting together a event at Comic Zone in Syracuse. So we went, and that's where we met Ben and Alyssa and a bunch of other really cool locals, and it was dope. These events, oddly enough, you're going to travel far to find friends like right down the road in your state, just an hour or two away, and it's really dope.
Yeah, yeah, and if I can, you listen to every single person who's won these big events. Vince, who won LVO, Pat Dunford, who traveled across the pond,
Mhm.
and one of the things that they always talk about is how wonderful it is to be with people who are playing this game. Not that, hey man, I smoked this guy in round two, I smoked this guy, and so on and so forth. But being able to build community, build friendships that more often than not can last longer than plastic toys. And I think there's something really special, especially in the midst of competitive tight games where you're both trying your best and having what you think is the most optimized squad roster, and you're giving it all, and it's close, and um, Dylan and I had a great game. It was really really fun, and it was I had fun, and then we hugged. It may have been a struggle snuggle, but we got there. Um, and I think for a lot of folks that brings something special into you know um, the competitive sphere. But I think it also leads into another talking point. Um,
I'm going to cut you
about
off real quick before we get
yeah,
into
yeah,
another talking point, though. Alyssa in chat said that she met Omnis at LVO, and as part of the LVO experience, feels like part of the community. Um, Going to some of these events isn't, once again, not always about the big singles event. Omnis and Tyson and Danny all went to Adepticon and did not play in the big singles event. They were there to play pickup games and see a bunch of faces that they've met from around the community. And I think that's dope. That these aren't just about the big singles thing. It's about the people. It's about the community. And when the community's that strong, it is absolutely worth the price of admission, which honestly is usually pretty reasonable outside of travel.
Honestly, the most expensive part of a con trip's usually the flight.
Yeah,
Like
or the
hotels
hotel.
are, which can be, but again, if you meet somebody at the previous con where you're like, hey yo, you need a roommate, boom, already makes it cheaper.
That's true.
yeah,
Which
Find
I've
people
definitely
you
roomed
like so
with
you can
people I've been
sleep on
around
their
that.
floor.
Right,
yeah,
listen to them
It'll,
snore.
it'll save you a ton.
yeah.
But sorry, Ben, you
Oh,
were heading to
Yeah,
another.
so or just kick them out, and put them on the couch for a couple of days. Like, you stay there. uh, but no, I think one of the big things that's important in terms of competitive MCP, competitive gaming in general, is player etiquette. What does it mean? What does it look like to play well in in competitive setting? And one of the best things that I heard just a couple of weeks ago. MCP dice are gonna do some crazy things. God, in all of His omnipotence, doesn't even know how these MCP dice work. It is just crazy.
Yeah,
uh, and I, that gave me a big old chuckle. But there's you can't control everything, and there's a life lesson in there somewhere. You can't control everything. So what happens when you're making all of the decisions and it's just going wrong? What happens when you've got a fine-tuned list, and as long as you don't run against this one matchup, you'll be fine, and then you pull that matchup round one? Um, what are you going to do?
shout out to Will from House Party Protocol too. That was just like, I'm gonna play Wizards as long as I don't go up against Brotherhood. Round one on stream against Brotherhood.
Boom. Yeah, just make it happen,
Yeah.
right? My first big competitive event in MCP was last year at NashCon. So we're coming into a whole year's worth of competitive events for me. Um, Round one, I'm playing Brotherhood and really excited. I'm really, it's the time of the big bad kitty. I'm feeling good, and don't tech my list around the big bad kitty, and I go against a Hulkbuster led Avengers team. What? Who plays Hulkbuster led Avengers? So cool. All my cool throwing stuff never did anything. Uh, so how what does it look like? And I guess I want to pose that question to you guys of what do you do? What are some practices for you that when maybe things aren't going well, in a game that maybe you really want to win, or there's high expectations. What do you do?
I play memes whenever possible.
yeah.
Um, I go for the Hail Hydras. I go for the cloning in a Craven to kill a Spider-Man for feelful symmetry. Those are my goals. Eh, there's almost every one of those like submissions that I'm playing whenever I'm playing a game. It's like, I don't care. I just want to use Siege of Darkness with Immortal Hulk to kill an Angela. That's it. Or to kill a this, or to kill a that. Or I just want to turn off this power from somebody because it's funny to me. Like those are normally my dreams are in fact memes, but it's with MCP and the way the dice work. Sometime on Monday or Tuesday, sorry, I rolled 32 defense dice with Immortal Hulk. All failed. Not a
Mm,
single success in any of that. But
mm, yeah.
guess what? That's what Immortal Hulk's for. He heals up a little bit. Iron Fist patches him up for 5. He's back to full health, loses the immortality token. Guess what? All of that damage was for nothing. All you did was cost me patch up. Start over, try again. And those moments, especially in MCP, based on how the dice end up working out sometimes, are the stories that you walk away with. The stories that you hear people talking about aren't, yeah, turn one, I got this thing because I practiced this so much that I knew I could grab these 4 things. It's just like, oh, you wouldn't believe it. Black Widow walked up and super spiked and killed Thanos somehow. Like those are the things that are the takeaways from it. So just go full memes all the time, and sometimes it works. It won't fail every time.
Yeah. What about you, Dylan?
So, as someone who used to experience the thing called hope, I used to walk up and actually, hope that maybe my brain and my tactics would get me through the day.
Mm-hmm.
Well, dear listener, let me tell you, no. So, what I've discovered is that so I'm a big philosophy guy. I'm a big fan of it. I actually am a Stoic. I love Stoic philosophy type stuff. And so, one of the very core tenets that I've really had to ponder sometimes when I go to events when things ain't going my way. And I don't know if people know this or not, but I'm sort of a fiery individual that is not always on the bright side of life when it comes to having the passions, shall we say. But the thing that I always try and keep in mind is that nobody wakes up in the morning thinking, "Man, I can't wait for someone to hate me." Just wake up and think about that. That's the first thing that goes through their mind. Nobody does that. When somebody plays against you and the dice just ain't going your way, it's not them. It's not their fault that the dice are just doing the thing. They're just doing dice things. The first thing you got to remember is that you have to detach yourself from that.
Mm,
So one of the things, I don't remember if it was Seneca or Marcus Aurelius says you have to think about the things that you control and the things that you do not control. You do not control the dice. Once they leave your hand, it is all things around you that you have no control over. The only thing you have control over is your reaction to the thing that happens.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure I saw a Jedi move a die though. Like that, there was midichlorians, and you could.
Well,
That
then,
did happen. You know who moves
Yeah.
more dice than Jedi's though? Sentinel Prime.
Mm, there you
so
go.
then what you do is you get angry and you look them really close in the eye, and then you jump over that table and you keel them.
But very
Oh,
specifically, not being able to control the dice is in fact a very big part of this, right? So
Right.
you have some things go where you see very high level players sometimes getting that first loss in round 2, especially if they get paired up against another very good player. The dice can decide a lot. It never decides everything, but you could potentially, I mean, as far as going to an event, you could win things. There's a shot there, especially significantly more in MCP than other games where maybe they do in fact just roll blanks and skulls and hits on their defense for 7 turns in a row. It happens. We've proven it live on the internet. So that viability is there, especially if you're just there to have a good time. You could stumble into something better than you expected. Hey,
And to put this into perspective, when I played against that game I was talking about earlier with Jesse, he said something to me that really I had already kind of always floated around in my mind, but then it really like solidified when he said this. He said, "How did you get into my house?" He said, "I don't touch dice anymore, Dylan. I don't live that life anymore. I win this game by not touching dice." And it is so true that if you want to win MCP, do not touch those dice unless you have no other choice. And you will be fine.
yeah. There, that's and it's interesting. It's all about player preference. There are a lot of really high tier competitive lists and things to AMG that they fixed a lot of that no interaction gameplay
yeah.
Yeah,
which
it's a lot
was
better. It's a lot better since they did
really
that.
problematic, I think, for the longevity of the game. But I see, for me, when I play even at high tier competitive tournaments, I want to throw as much dice as possible. I'm all about it. I'm about grab me a bucket full of dice. and let's see what happens. This just happened to me recently, where on paper everything is completely fine. I should walk away from this, and then dice do some dice things.
Hmm.
And so when we talk about etiquette, one of the things that's important to me is nurturing your opponent. Now that may sound weird, but being able to keep constant communication. I'm doing this. This is going to happen. Does this look okay to you? Keeping your opponent involved in the game, even if it's just a steamroll,
Hmm.
while you're walking through the pieces and having the conversation, and then also taking social cues. Um, here's the real deal. Sometimes people are really invested. They've put a lot of time. There are some folks. One of my buddies has made a spreadsheet of every of his roster and every threat value that and every character that he can bring against certain opponents. And that takes a lot of commitment that hurts my brain. Um, and what ends up happening when those persons lose or are losing, that's a lot of commitment. It can be frustrating. So sometimes it's really important to be able to recognize social cues, that if someone is disconnecting or would like the game to be over, you know um, recognize that and nurture that the best way that you can, even if that means. And one of the things I learned that is, it's okay to, if you're getting upset, it's okay to say, you know what, I'm just going to take a couple seconds to cool down. Because in the grand scheme of things, and I think it's fair to say, out of us gathered here, I'm one of the more competitive players. There are times where I get upset, in math, and in the averages of how the dice should work. If everything works perfectly, this should happen, and it doesn't. And I am not a happy camper. And being able to pause, take a moment to walk away. And I want to speak specifically, and I think this is important. I want to name this. Um, that sometimes when you're in the midst of competitiveness, you really, gear up and you overhype yourself, and you can get really frustrated. I tend to be, one of those folks. It's actually really good, and I really would encourage anyone who's listening who is either interested and afraid that they might get upset because they maybe can't control themselves, or something like that. You just get swept up in it. Having accountability partners is one of the best things. And I'll confess this. Tim is one of my accountability partners. Where there are times at events where I'm frustrated. LVO was one of it. I had a certain moment where I literally do one thing and everything's fine, and I didn't do it, and I had to walk away for a second and talk to Tim, and talk to a couple of other people. My wife, being one of my accountability partners, and also being just one of the best spouses ever, saying, "Hey, can you please help bring me back to reality?" Because in the grand scheme of it, this is a game with plastic toys and pretty paints. If you're Dr. D, who knows how to slap colors on gray, and that's important. But it's okay. You're a human being. You're gonna fall. You're gonna fall short, um, and that shouldn't scare you away from the competitive scene,
Yeah.
because there are ways to be able to reconcile and work alongside that, and I think that's really really important.
One thing that I'm actually curious about, and this question is for both of you, and we might make this question available for everybody for a giveaway, but when you are in a game and you're playing a friend, a foe, an anonymous stranger, just someone you met in the dumpster behind Bearded Dragon Games, when you're playing someone and their dice are just absolutely betraying them, just left and right, what do you say to that person to get them back in and having fun? What is a tool that you have used that you have seen work? Or alternatively, what is something that has worked for you to say, you know what, it is just the dice, let's go? If anyone ever watches me play Blood Bowl here on this stream, they'll say before any important roll, I always just say, "What's the worst that could happen?" Because I know it's about to. But what's
Well, you
something like
say you say get good. You know,
and then you sock them.
Yep. So I can truthfully say, as someone who tilts very easily, I've gotten a lot better about it, thankfully, over the years. The thing that I did not ever want to hear was I didn't want to hear them apologize. Don't apologize.
I,
It's so you mean the best of intentions, but it always when you're in the mode of being angry, it sounds like I don't want to say condescending,
I think it's fair. Yeah.
but it's like you just don't apologize. Be like, man, that sucks. All right, well, let's keep going.
Yep.
I'm sorry, bro. It happens, you know. Or you could say like, or maybe you can commiserate and you'd be like, yeah, that happened to me last game, you know, whatever, blah blah blah. Or you could be like, yeah, my wife left me, and so like you just keep going, and you just
I'm
just kind
lonely.
of, I'm so lonely, please. Um, so you go like, yeah, it sucks, but it is kind of just like, and again, like in a stoic philosophy sort of way. Sorry
yeah.
to keep going that way, but it's very much a stoic philosophy where it's just like it happens. It's like there's nothing you can do about it. It's out of our hands. Hey, let's just keep going. You may lose this one, but you know what? The pain you suffer now is going to make you the person that you are later. So it's like
I,
that's the best way you can look at it.
I actually really like that. I think, and for me too, as a player, it's like my default. It's like it seems reactionary that I'm like, well, I should apologize. I don't know what else to say or what's gonna. So I think that's great advice that might not be the right thing. So to think about that internally, if you're having a very poor time with the way the dice that are rolling out, if you would hear an apology, if that would feel disingenuous to you, or I mean, in some of those situations, I legitimately was like, "Oh, dude, that sucks. Like, I'm sorry. Like, but maybe that's not what you want to hear. So let's find that thing to make people feel a little bit better about it." I think what you said is very valid, and just like, eh, that sucks, dude. Like,
Yeah.
takes it off kind of everyone's plate a little bit. But I think there's yeah, Ben, go for it. What do you got?
Yeah, no, I think, Dr. D, to your point, man, I mean, there are other ways to be empathetic than being apologetic, right? And that's really important. And knowing your opponent, this is what I mean by nurturing your opponent. Some people we can commiserate together, you know, and others, maybe apologizing does work, or others maybe just, hey, I'm good. That's why communication actually really is important. Being able to say, hey, I don't need you to apologize, it's okay, stuff happens, right? Helps kind of set good boundaries. And I think that's a really wonderful way to just play games, period. Not casual and competitive, is setting good and healthy boundaries.
Mhm.
But yeah, for me, when I'm getting diced into oblivion, or I'm dicing someone into oblivion, um, it was just like, holy, I am just a big loud person. And so trying to, laugh, do something like, I've done, I mean, Tim, you've seen me, I've done circles around freaking, tables, like, oh God, just go crazy.
There was a
Uh,
specific table at the art store event where I stopped walking by when For Asgard was happening because anytime I would stroll up, For Asgard was happening, and it would be like six blanks, one skull.
yeah.
Like,
Yep. And we're just like, go away, Tim. Before Asgard is happening, go away. Go over there. Go over there. So finding a way to bring joy is something that is actually, I think, really important in the midst of competitive games. For me personally, um, I need to be able to talk to other people around me.
mhm.
One of the worst things that happens to me at events is not when my opponent isn't talking to me, but my neighbor to my right and to my left aren't talking to me. I just need to be able to talk to everybody, because if I don't, if it's quiet, sometimes you're going to play against a quiet opponent, or someone who doesn't really want to talk to you, so because they're hyper focused or whatever. So then, which happened to me at NashCon. Um, so I
Oh, that's
looked
right.
to my yep, I looked to my right, and thanks, one of my buddy Chewy was there, and so we were able to just kind of have our own side conversation, just like, oh, look at that, oh, I mean, just being able to co-commiserate with people around you. Now, again, do that with caution, because some people will tell you to shut up.
Yeah.
um,
And once
but
again, like kind of like you said, it's all about reading that body language, reading those cues. It's important. Not everyone wants to be a friend, but not everyone doesn't want to be a friend either.
Exactly. Yeah. And actually, one of my favorite games was my last game at NashCon, and perfect timing when Dylan takes. It was against Wizards, It was against a Wizards player. I was playing Brotherhood, and we rolled Gamma Montesi. And we just right when that happened, we just look and we're like, come here, just give me a hug, just come here, come here. And he laughed, and we just laughed together. And Juggernaut is chasing some nerd down with a book, like, give me this book. I mean, just doing things like that in the game, where the matchup is clearly not in this person's favor, um, reminds, I think, e- both of us that this is a game and it's meant to be fun, and it's supposed to invoke a comic book set. This is a comic book game.
Hmm.
And so we just thought it was funny, that here's Juggernaut going, hey, I really want to learn how to read Doctor Strange, can you please teach me how to read? And by the way, he's just repeating, I'm the Juggernaut. I don't know if you've forgotten that. And as he's trying to do these magical fingers stuff, he's just like, boop, I'm gonna just catch this car. I'm really glad that years of training has taught you how to read good. Here's a car. Um, you things like that, right?
Yeah.
Where you could just laugh and have fun, even in a competitive setting where there was a possibility that in that game, if a couple things went both our way in terms of our other opponents, that one of us could have snuck into the 8th spot, for cuts.
Mm.
So this is still an important game. We're not at the bottom of the barrel. This is a one of you, with some help, can make top cuts, and you can get there. But while this is happening, we're laughing. I'm just having a good time. So that was really important for me when we talk about competitive etiquette.
Beautiful. Well, I think that's going to bring us to the end of tonight's episode. So I think to boil it down, roll better. If your opponent rolls poorly, tell them to roll better,
Yeah.
and just do that. Easy, easy clap. This game's
I,
easy. As my
I,
opponent this week in Blood Bowl told me, "Wow, this game's so easy. I don't know why everyone complains about it."
yeah, yeah. I've also just learned how to threaten people a lot. Hey, have you ever been beat up by a holy man? That usually works. Just threaten them with holy violence, and you know,
Is that a confirmation that the spot is going to be coming to MCP?
know who the spot is.
The guy filled
He's a
with holes.
What?
oh,
What? That was a perfect
I,
setup.
dude, I just,
You know what? You should roll better.
I should
roll
roll
better,
life
man.
better.
Yeah, apparently. And listen, this is something that in the Infinity community that is talked about by a lot of the more friendly people. It's not quite so much with whatever anyway, but the whole idea is you are playing the game together.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Why should one person be miserable?
Yeah.
And it's like if it's to a certain point where the other person's just not having fun, you're just like, I mean, you can honestly, I like open communication. You could even ask them like, what do you want me to do? Do you want me to be quiet or do you want me to make bad jokes? Do you want a dad
Yep.
joke? I mean, I have it on on speed dial on my Instagram as dad jokes. So
Do you want a tag team on the TO? Because Tim's running this. We could
Right.
just both hurl insults at him. That
Yeah.
also works.
Yes.
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
he deserves it.
Actually, it's very. The first time I met Brian was at ACO. Or Brian Watson was at ACO, and one thing that really impressed me about him was before the event ran, before it started, he gathers everyone up. He's like, "Listen, if you're having a bad time, that's not on your opponent. Yell at me. If something is not going your way, yell at me. Do not do it to your opponent. They are here to have a good time as well. You two should be friends.
Yeah.
You communicate with each other. If there are complaints to have, bring that to me." He's like he like Green Miles people. He's a sin eater. It's pretty dope.
It was really awesome. And I do, before we end, I do want to just say, because I think that sometimes there's a stigma of, that you gotta like meta list or things like that. I brought an all Brotherhood affiliated team, which was not in the super meta world, because this was before the crisis change, um, to Everwinter. And not only did I have a whole bunch of fun because I'm playing with the models that I'm enjoying to play with, but we're able to do really well. And so play
And you
what you want,
qualified for
have
LVO
fun.
doing that too.
And that's how I qualified for LVO.
Yeah.
Yep. So play what you want, have fun, and recognize that you can do this. Set good goals.
Beautiful. All right, so over the next few months, make sure to be checking out the website professionalcasual.com, as Dylan has been absolutely cranking out really good quality blogs. Alyssa wrote a very good one as well. Ben wrote one as well from when the Winter Guard were released. That was I thought, very thoughtful. But over the next few months, we're going to be running or streaming or being a part of all sorts of events. So if competitive events or casual competitive events are something you're looking to get into, guess what? There's no shortage of them. Next month, May 20th, there will be our event at Bearded Dragon Games in upstate New York. The following weekend will be Ironweld. That will be an event that Brian is running outside the Boston area. Make sure to check out wickeddicey.com for that if you're looking for more information. That'll be a 3x3 team tournament that should be absolutely awesome. We're going to be streaming that, so make sure you can check out all of that right here on this Twitch. July. Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped June. We
Yeah,
have
there was a whole.
Also, Marvel Zombies.
and the Marvel Zombies
Oh, yeah.
event as well. In addition to that, in June we have another event at the art store on June 24th, and the weekend before, not only is it my birthday, but it is also the Atlantic City Open, which we will be streaming the whole time as well. Following that right up with Salt City GT. What was that for?
Just birthdays, man.
Listen,
Birthdays.
birthdays are important to me. All of June is my birthday. I think everyone
So
should
you're-
kind of just mark that down right now. But
Yeah, your birthday gift is no one's allowed to help you drive to ACO.
listen, I've been getting that birthday. I'm so happy my birthday comes so often. July, the weekend of July 7th is the Salt City GT. That'll be a big 2-day singles event in Syracuse, New York at the Salt City GT Con, which is going to be just awesome. We're going to be there. Brian Horton and Brian Watson will be there. A lot of your favorites from around the network will be there as well. I believe we're going to be streaming it or playing in it or both. Also, in August, we have NashCon. September is all sorts of stuff as well. There's no shortage of stuff over the next few months, especially over the summer. If you want to get into MCP events, honestly, there's a lot going on. So stay tuned. But massive shout out to all of our King Ding Doppelgangers and our professional cake sitters at patreon.com, including people like Tisdale and Charles, Bastion and Rob, Paxis, who's just super dope. We met him at Adepticon in person for the first time, which was just very awesome. Then we have folks like Tony Hot Hands, Bicon, Cider Drinker, Leroy, Devil Pup, Dr. D, Otis, Iron Maze, Wizard Skills, Dagna, Cider Drinker, also Cider Drinkers there sometimes. It's a pretty dope time. But guys, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. And make sure to check out Frontline Gaming with our code right down below if you are looking to pick up mats, terrain, or event tickets. That you can support our channel directly just by getting your event tickets through that link. So if you're going to be headed to those events, might as well. All right, guys, thank you so much. We'll see you next week. And we got a whole lot of dope stuff coming next Thursday as well for every level of the Patreon. After Wait Did I Roll a Wild, we will be doing a new episode of the cleanup phase, which is where we talk about a lot of the behind the scenes stuff, and there will be some announcements happening there as well. So some updates to some tiers of the Patreon that I think will be very exciting, as well as some new kind of just information as a whole that I think is personally very, very, very exciting. So guys, we'll see you next week. Remember professionalcasual.com for all of that other great stuff, and be good to everyone. It just makes a better game. All right, guys, thank you so much.
Yourself.
Yes,
We love you.
and I think
Including
that's actually a really important one. To don't be too hard on yourself, man. You're there to have a good time. If you play Hydra Bob every game, you can't have a bad time. It's physically and literally and mentally impossible.
It's on the card.
Mhm.
Do it.
All right, guys, thank you so much. Oh, it's in the pinned bits here. So let me go ahead and post that. But guys, yeah, we'll see you next week. Thank you so much. Bye.
Roll better or your wife will leave you. Bye.